Okay, we can see your screen. So the next talk is how Reservoir boosts your lean packages. And so please go ahead.
Thank you. Um, my name is Malone. I am a member of the Lean FRO, the people developing the Lean core itself. My primary responsibility within there is the maintenance of Lake, the package manager and build system for Lean. I also more generally work around aspects of the package ecosystem, including uh, indexing and test framework and package versions and all that stuff. So what I'm talking about today is how Reservoir boosts your Lean packages and what this tool, Reservoir, can provide users and how you can make best use of it. So I'm going to start with a brief outline of what I'll be talking about today. First and foremost, what is Reservoir? Secondly, what services will Reservoir be expected to provide? Not everything is finished, but there is a good bit that is, so there would be a bit of split between what is done and what will be done. Some important services that I'll be covering are the standardized package index format with Lake integration that Reservoir provides. Information, it also provides information on open source packages within the Lean and Lake ecosystem. And it provides a package test bed that analyzes compatibility between Lean toolchain and package versions, which in the future we hope to enable automated assistance when migrating between different toolchains or different packages versions. It also is planned to provide package artifact storage, a la LakeEXE cache, and eventually serve as the drop-in replacement for that, both for MATLAB itself and its requirements, and more generally for CS projects that have such things that have slightly different requirements when it comes to cache. I will also be talking about what packages are in fact on Reservoir, what the requirements are to get a package onto Reservoir, and how in the future one can opt out of having a package on Reservoir. So to begin, what in fact is Reservoir? Reservoir is the official package registry for Lake. It indexes, builds, tests, and distributes the packages created by the Lean community. It's inspired by crates.io or the LaTeX package manager or pip, the package Python thing. Is the whole idea is have a storage like PyPy, I think it's the name of the Python one. It's that kind of thing. It's available already live at reservoir.leanlang.org. I previously, Leo previously announced this in the October 2023 Lean community. That was kind of the alpha version. We're now at essentially the beta version where it's more or less it's more or less functional. It's regularly updated, but it's not yet fully feature complete to what we want to see there before at least the proper 1.0 release. So quick look at what Reservoir looks like right now. There is a nice little search bar. You can type in the package, go to that package page, and see some information about that package. I'll be going into more depth as the talk progresses. So first and foremost, what services will Reservoir be expected to provide? The most important component by far is probably the package index, which is Reservoir crawls GitHub for Lean packages and registers them within a persistent index. This provides information on all the packages in Lean in a handy dandy place, namely this Lean Prover Reservoir index GitHub repository, which has all the information that Reservoir uses to display in its website. This provides a source of truth for packages in the Lean ecosystem, which is very important. And when it comes to package management, you want to know what packages there are and have some information about them. The most important part of a package, at least when it comes to identifying it within a large database, is the package name. Packages in Reservoir and in this index are registered with the two-part full name of owner and package. This is a relatively new style. GitHub does it. NPM now kind of does the same thing, but a lot of other managers only have a single name for a package. Here we do it two parts to try and avoid people trying to claim names and various disagreements that can come across the fact that maybe we both want to name a package some common word. This way, you don't have to worry about arguing who owns that name because everyone can have packages with the same name. These packages appear in Reservoir with an @ sign at the beginning. This is just a aesthetic convention that also makes the URL more straightforward. This name is currently derived directly from GitHub, but will soon be derived from the name field of the package within the lake file. What package in particular? Reservoir actually stores a whole lot of information about packages within its index. Some of the basic metadata can be seen to the right of the slide, which regards what is currently stored, but the contents of this data is currently in flux. But the goal is to standardize it in the future so that you can have internal indices and other such things where you follow the same format and all the tools that work on top of Reservoir will work with some custom index. This information is then presented to people via the package pages on the Reservoir website in a more human readable format as opposed to the machine readable format the actual index repository provides. Currently, it's pretty basic. It just shows you the README of the package, its description, its name, and license information, and basic some results from the testbed. But more info is planned to come soon. One important thing being dependencies and dependents, so you know what packages it depends on, what packages depend on it, and have links to all those things. Also, package versioning is forthcoming. We also are very happy to have suggestions on what you'd like to see here. Reservoir is meant to be a community resource, so anything the community finds helpful, we certainly would like to put at the very least consider and hopefully maybe even address. So feel free to suggest. In addition to the static information provided in the index that is just directly derived from sources outside the package code, Reservoir also has a package testbed that dynamically analyzes packages via actually running the code within them and running code on the code within them. Currently, it just builds a package, but this will eventually be extended to verify it with external checkers like Lean4 checker and run test suites that you will define for a package once there exists a standardized official test framework for Lean. Some details on how this testbed works. First, the testbed can be run against any number of Elon toolchains across some subset of the packages in the index. These packages are most easily chosen by regex. So it's not that customizable, at least at a human level. And of course, you can write code to make it better. But the key part here being that a toolchain we can run on any toolchain. So we can also use this to test PRs to Lean4, which and therefore determine whether or not some feature request someone makes to the core of Lean breaks downstream packages, which downstream packages it breaks, why they break, all that stuff is information we can derive from just simply running this testbed on toolchain across the whole infrastructure. This provides us much more rich information about what features will hurt and help who. Currently, this tests against the package's current head revision of their repository because we don't currently have any real notion of versioning, so that's the only version there is to go for. Hopefully in the future, we'll have more details there. It also overwrites the package's toolchain to test against that specific version of Lean. So even if you say, I want to use some old Lean, it will try insert the expected toolchain into that file and run it on that toolchain. This, of course, could break things like mathlib, but the goal here is partly to determine whether or not things do break on different toolchains. So that is one of the reasons why we do this. But that is something to keep in mind, that is not running things always on what is requested. And in order to build things, currently it does in fact try like exe cache git. So mathlib products are faster. They don't have to rebuild out of mathlib. It then just builds it. If the build fails, it will then run a like update to try and get new versions of the packages and see if that will then build. So that is the current very minimal structure of a build. There, eventually in the future, we would hope this to do more potential migrations to just automatically update packages to see if it still works. But currently, it's just very straightforward. Does it build? And the testbed runs are performed daily across the entire Lean ecosystem. We build every single package every day. On that note, the explicit testbed schedule is here. On Monday, Wednesday, Friday, we test against the package specified toolchain, so the toolchain that's in your Lean toolchain file. We build that and see if it works. On Sunday and Thursday, we test against the latest toolchain, Lean toolchain. This includes release candidates. So right now, the latest one is version 4.5.0 RC1. So on Sunday and Thursday, we would build every package against that and see if it builds. On Tuesday and Saturday, we test against the latest stable Lean toolchain, which does not include the release candidate. So this would be right now version 4.4, and stick that in the toolchain and see if that builds. So different days have different toolchains that we test. But every single day, the index listing and metadata is updated. That is what packages are on Reservoir. If new packages are added to GitHub that meet the requirements, we add them to the listing, and we also update metadata for any existing packages. So what exactly does the testbed produce when we pass a package? We have these little icons on the page that are designed to represent outcomes of a given testbed on Reservoir. A green check mark indicates success, i.e. it passed without any caveats. A second option is what the gold check mark, as you can see a few packages on the front page have. This indicates that it passed with some caveats. One such caveat being that it only builds on an older Lean toolchain, which is generally a good thing, which is why it gets a check mark, but it does not necessarily match the goal of doing the current version of Lean successfully supporting these old packages. And on the more extreme side, we have a red X, which means that the testbed failed, which one example over there on CVX Lean. And then finally, there is this blue asterisk, which means that we did not attempt the testbed at all for some reason on that package. Currently, there are no packages with a blue asterisk because we do test, in fact, every single package on Reservoir. But in the future, this may change, either because we don't have enough resources to test them all, or because certain packages request not to be tested, or there is nothing to test in cases where there is no default late build thing to build. Clicking on this icon, this asterisk, checkmark, or cross, goes to the build job log on GitHub Actions, where the actual run that did that test bed analysis is. These logs are available to logged in users for 9 days per GitHub policies. If you're not logged in, you'll just see the steps of the build, i.e. the word build. You won't be able to open it and see this kind of error messages or output. You'll just be able to see the word build, which is not particularly helpful. So you do have to be logged in to see information on a given package. But you don't have to be the owner of that package because this is just run by the Reservoir repository itself. And these are only available for 9 days. So if there's some build on Reservoir that happened a long time ago, which is currently not the case because I don't think there's actually been testbed runs for 90 days at this point in time, but in the future, there may be some testbed runs that are since out of date and the logs have since disappeared. So this is only going to be useful for a short term. And the last line on this build step indicates the outcome of the build. It will either say like failed to build blah 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 on blah blah blah, or succeed to build blah 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 on blah blah, which will tell you whether or not Reservoir thought it passed or failed. And then the rest of the messages are just what Lean outputs in that process of running testbed. Another key component here is lake integration. Now that Reservoir is up and running, Lake will soon make use of it. That's kind of the goal with Reservoir, is to serve as a repository for Lake. And depending on Reservoir packages will require a different form of the require statement. Currently require things directly from GitHub. The goal is to shift this to requiring stuff from Reservoir. The expected syntax of this will look something like this for standard, or this for mathlib, where you can put things in quotes if it's not a valid bean identifier. So very simple syntax. And the goal of not including specifically the source here is that by default, this will attempt to find the package on the Reservoir index, but also will be able to be invisibly swapped out for internal indices when desired. This will make it more useful for companies and users who might not have the ability to use packages directly from GitHub or from some public source, but need to use some internal private thing because a company might have software review policies or otherwise that require them to have control over those set of packages that they are distributing, or for users in contexts where they simply can't access the internet or GitHub or Reservoir for some reason. Also, having this direct connection to Reservoir and a source for these packages will enable supporting cloud builds in the future via this whole index behind the scenes API invisibly in Lake without having to manually specify yourself. I'll let exe cache get. And that's kind of like the core focus of what this beta stage of Reservoir was, which is having this index and these persistent data that we can link to from Lake and can be displayed to the public via the website. So plans and ideas for future services. Stepping a bit further into the future. One goal is to store custom package artifacts in the cloud via hooks and Lake. So right now, even Lake exe cache just uploads oleans. A lot of more technical software may also need external binary blobs or such dependencies that are not easily they're not lean themselves, and there needs to be some way of packaging this information with your package. Like, for instance, Proof Widgets has JS associated with it that it wants to pack with its widgets. So we want to add some feature to do that so that you can take a whole blob of code, pack it with your Lean code, put it onto a single binary archive, upload that, and then download it, unpack it, put it where it's supposed to be, and things will work. So this is slightly different than what Mathlib's cache currently does. So this is another potential separate direction that we would also like to go. We also want to assist with automatic migration of packages between toolchains and dependency versions, because that is information that Reservoir will have, having run past all these different packages and test them on a variety of different toolchains and versions. It'd be nice to be able to then provide this as a utility to end users via PRs or something along those lines. And we could even do some form of automated semantic change detection for versions and stuff like that, e.g. via Leaf, which was just showed off a bit earlier today. All this stuff is possible because of the test bed that allows us to run against every single package in the ecosystem. So some notes on this. These are medium to long-term goals, so don't expect them too soon. But do feel free to suggest further ideas. Again, Reservoir is designed to be a community service, and we want to provide the best possible service we can. Obviously, there's going to be priorities and stuff like that that will limit what we consider and when we can get to it. But we do want to provide a optimal experience with this above and beyond even what might be crates, IO, or other similar packages, something more lean focused. But do note that the wait may be long because this is not necessarily the highest priority. So that covers what services Reservoir provides. Now the question is, how does your package end up on Reservoir? So to start, what are the package requirements? Number one, it must be a GitHub repository. In the future, we may hope to maybe address like GitLab or other sorts of forages out there, but currently we only scrape GitHub, and therefore your package has to be on GitHub. It also has to not be a fork. We only index source repositories, so if your package says fork from blah in it, it will not get on Reservoir. So that is a key requirement. So check for that if you're wondering why your package isn't there. It must also have a root lakefile.lean. So in the top level directory of your repository, there must be a file called exactly lakefile.lean that contains the configuration of the package. This is the only thing that Reservoir really looks for to determine that your package is a lean package. The topic and the language are not used, at least at the moment. This may have to change in the future because code searching on GitHub is a bit finicky, but this is the ideal goal. It has lakefile.lean. Your star count also has to be greater than 1. This is just simply to skip various notes and other kinds of for public facing intended facing packages or repositories, and also to serve as a very minor form of curation against potential spam or something like that. That star count of 2 implies that there are at least 2 people, you and someone else, who care about the package, and that seems like a reasonable minimal threshold. It must also have an OSI approved license. The license is shown in this little scale symbol on GitHub. If you don't see that, that means that no license has been detected. That information over there tells you what license GitHub thinks your project has, which it determines from the license file in your project. That needs to have a proper value, and if it doesn't say anything, then your package will not be on Reservoir. If it does say something, that license, what license it says, matters as well. In particular, what is an OSI approved license? GitHub provides these things called SPDX license identifiers for a repository license, which this whole concept is available and viewable at spdx.org/license. If you look at this on this website, it will tell you a whole list of dozens of licenses that are commonly used in open source or software projects. On the right-hand side, there is a column called OSI approved. If you have a check mark there, then your license is OSI approved if the name of the license more or less matches that name that you see in GitHub. The names are not entirely one for one, but they're essentially one for one. What OSI, in fact, stands for is the Open Source Initiative. It's an organization that is dedicated to open source projects and providing good service for this. The reason why we require OSI approved licenses is because that guarantees that we are free to modify and redistribute them via the test bed or through Lake, and therefore make sure there's no legal gray area walking in, and also make sure there's no legal gray area you're walking in, that when you require on these packages, you've been granted the license to use them in whatever way you desire, and you don't have to worry about potential legal pitfalls there outside of false representation on the part of the package author themselves. But ideally, in most cases, that's not going to be considered. And finally, there is, okay, that's how you get into Reservoir. What happens if you want to get out of Reservoir? Currently, Reservoir automatically indexes and builds all packages meeting the requirements I just specified. So if you meet those things, you're on Reservoir, regardless of whether you want to be or not. But in the future, we are hoping to provide, will provide an avenue to specify that you don't want your package there, and either to display or you don't want to build because it's expensive or all that kind of stuff. There will be configuration options to exit or to yank your package or to do stuff like that. This is currently tracked at Lean Prover Reservoir number 6. So once that issue gets closed, you will know that there is now somewhere available in Lake the ability to do this, to opt out. And that concludes my talk. I greatly appreciate all of you for taking the time to listen to my presentation. As an FRO member, you can expect me to be easily available on Zulip for any questions or concerns you may have about Lake or Reservoir or any other stuff I have to work on. Please feel free to create issues on the Lean Prover/Reservoir GitHub repository for any feature requests or bugs you might have discovered on the site. It is, again, a community service, and I'm perfectly happy to hear any and all requests you may have. Not maybe every single one will be gotten to, but I really do want to make this the best site possible for the community. And that sums it up. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you for all the work also on Lake and the Reservoir. So is there any question?
So, may I ask a question?
Yeah, sure. Go ahead, please.
So sorry, I may have missed it. So besides all the dependence, all the constraints that you put to the package there. So what else we have to do to ask for index the package? Sorry, I missed that part.
No, if you meet those requirements, your package will be automatically indexed. So as long as your
Okay, so
package is the GitHub
you-
repository, that's not a fork, that has star count greater than 1, has a root-like file, and is OSI approved license, you will end up on the Reservoir index. At least you should.
Okay, so
I will-
you basically crawled all the GitHub looking for a repository that satisfy those criteria.
Yep.
Okay. Okay, great. Congratulations. Very nice work.
Thank you.
So any other questions? If not, I guess we can have a break or have a coffee or eat something if you are in Europe. Ah, no, yes, Jacob has a question, so please. Yeah, Jacob, feel free to ask your question. Oh, okay, or maybe Namibish?
Yeah. Have you thought about using the act of building pretty much everything so frequently to at least occasionally just get some profiling done with appropriate wide coverage to not miss things that shouldn't be missed?
Profiling, I mean, I do think that's a wonderful question, and I do think that is a great idea. I'm not quite sure what we would be profiling at the moment. Like I guess we could run the full lab profiler on packages, and therefore see what things people are taking, like is type, class synthesis, or elaboration, or whatever, taking the most time. But unless there's a specific thing, I guess do you have some idea of what you're particularly curious in seeing from that data?
Actually, less anything specific that I have in mind. It's more such coverage of the ecosystem is, at least from what I remember about the situation with Rust, extremely useful to get proper coverage for essentially the compiler itself, like performance investigation coverage.
Yeah, that sounds like a wonderful idea. I probably discussed some of that with Sebastian. That might be, yeah, that sounds wonderful. Thank you.
So apparently Jacob has some problems in unmuting themselves. So they wrote me their question is the question is if it's possible in the future to use Reservoir as a cache for roll-ins.
Yes, that is the plan.
Okay. And I see one, maybe we have time for one last question from Alok.
This is just a very simple question. It's about Lake. When you do Lake init or Lake new, since you had mentioned a GitHub repo is required, does it initialize one automatically? I know Cargo does that, and it's a small feature I've always liked.
Does it initialize a GitHub repository? You mean like via
Sorry, Git repo. Yeah, my
Yes, it
bad.
does. Linking it
Okay.
initializes the Git repo.
Okay, cool. That was it. Thank you.
Welcome.
Okay, so I guess we can have the break and see you in